Okay, it is Wednesday, March 23rd at 7:14 p.m. We'll call the Economic Development Commission meeting to order. Present from the commission are myself, Renee Deli, Laura Parker, Cody Thompson, and Denise Luciano. We also have guests, Paul DiGiuseppe, the town planner, and I saw another guest on here as well, Alyssa Nowak. So the agenda tonight is somewhat brief, just some business updates and an update from Paul, and then discussion on the request process that you guys had covered last week, and then as well talking about that same process and applying it for all marijuana establishments. So with that, I will ask if anyone has any business updates that they would like to share, whether it be inquiries or just information that they had seen around town.
Guy's Kitchen is delicious.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
Been twice now.
me too.
We passed there the other night. And I'm like, oh, we should go, and we just didn't have time.
Yeah, we're going there. A few of us are going there tomorrow.
Yeah, they're open for lunch now.
Yeah,
Excellent. Well, that's good to know.
I drove by what I thought was supposed to be named Solar Norton. And the signage on the building says Cana, C-A-N-A.
Mhm.
When did the name change happen?
Well, the business name is Solar Retail Norton. The name on the building, I don't think is necessarily linked to that. I saw that too. I actually saw Andre leaving one night. I was going to call him because he was behind me, but I didn't have a chance to ask.
So
The
do you-
fence is up.
It's
Looks
similar
nice.
to, yeah, it does look really nice. I wanted to reach out to get a date when they're opening because he said this month.
Right.
And it's already, what, the 23rd? But I just haven't had time. But no, I mean, I wouldn't expect, it's kind of like the other, I equate it to like some of the licenses that are approved, Laura, where we approve them under different names,
Okay.
right? Like they're not
I just thought we were,
specifically the business
yeah,
name.
I could have sworn though he was going to be, he wanted to use,
Norton in the name.
no, he wanted to use solar in the name so that it was affiliated with solar therapeutics.
We can
Wasn't-
ask him.
wasn't Cana, didn't they identify another company they were working with? Am I confusing them with another applicant?
Exit
That-
10, I think you're confusing them with.
Mhm.
Well, they were gonna be dealing with a company they would be buying from, but as I started to speak, I realized, well, they have their big grow facility in Somerset, so.
Yeah, I think Paul, they Exit 10 LLC initially was sort of partner with Cultivate.
Yep.
Right, and then
That's
Cultivate
right.
was
Yeah.
bought out, if I remember correctly. But I don't remember anything outside for Solar Retail Norton that it was going to be anything different because of their, what I would, I guess, call, for lack of a better term, parent company. But I can ask for, I can actually have him come if to the next meeting, because by then they should be open, so he can tell us about that. But I know he said he was going to email. I can't get into my town email, but I thought he said he was going to email us too, like just with grand opening information.
That would be great.
Can I make a motion to have the next EDC meeting there? I'm kidding, bad. I can't make motions anyway.
We can have it there. There's nothing
No.
stopping us. We can meet in person now. And trying to find a place, I think our only requirements is it has to be within Norton, right? Trying to
Doesn't
find a
have to be.
place around town is more difficult. What, Paul?
I assume we have to meet in a public setting, right? I mean, I would have to be available to anyone from the public who wanted to attend. Right, so it's not like you could just have a meeting in a restaurant somewhere and reserve a table. I don't think that's a public meeting. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either, but I think it would fit. It would, it's still public. Anybody can attend.
Well,
Yeah, they would have to make sure it's available, for anybody to go who wanted to attend it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
mind
Freddie had
staying
offered
virtual.
having one in his backyard.
I don't mind staying virtual for as long as possible. The last night, planning board just went back to hybrid. We had it in person and, half an hour drive home isn't much fun at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I'm sure.
hey, Paul, how come all of your applicants pushed their public hearings?
Should I just start?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's,
So-
let me ask one thing. Has anybody, I know we were trying to get in touch with somebody from Tasty Bagels. Anyone able to reach out? Paul, did you say that they filed some sort of a permit? Maybe that was Jen.
Yeah, I haven't heard that
Okay.
they've done it, but I know their signs are up now.
Mhm.
So they might be working inside there at this point. I don't know, but they put new signs in.
I mean, they've been posting, I think, on the town social media groups, right? Facebook. I thought I saw, if it's not the town, I don't know how I'm getting updates, but I'm seeing things about Norton and employees and stuff like that.
I'm sure they're going to start getting ready to hire employees but
Okay.
I'll have to look into that one.
Okay. The other thing, I haven't heard from Brianne Sylvia. I emailed her. She's the owner for Goat City, the one that's that bought Home Plate. So I'll try one more time. I have her phone number, so I can try to give her a call. And then I think the other thing I had listed here, and I don't know if somebody else gave this to me, but for the Indian farm market, if we wanted to have somebody in from there to talk about kind of what their, not what their style is, but what their products and
Yeah.
offerings will be.
I
That'd be
know
great.
they're still getting things ready.
Yeah.
I have a contact there.
Okay. Do you want to reach out to them and see if they want to join, or you want to pass that along to me and we can reach
I
out?
can try again. I called him a few weeks ago. You could tell he was in a rush and, I don't think I called him out of the blue. He had no idea who I was. I introduced myself, but I think he was doing a few things during that time. So we can, I definitely want to arrange with him, and I think it would be great to get him in front of the board or the commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And then I know, Paul, you'd said, and I don't think I circled back with this group. So my understanding was the folks from Bagels and Cream didn't attend last week. And I think we didn't have an expectation for them this week. So if that changes, I'm happy to put them on a future agenda if you talk to them.
I think they're, I would say they're probably not very interested in doing it.
Okay.
They know how to reach out to me if they want to come back, but I've reached out, and I go in there periodically anyway, so they're nice folks. But I'm not going to push it. We've invited them a couple times now, so.
Sure. No, I'm fine with whatever you want to do. If they reach out and they say that they'd like to attend, that's, they always have an open invitation.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I had a sticky on that, so I just wanted to cover those real quick. And then I don't know of any other new folks or any existing that we'd want to bring here. I know what I didn't put on this meeting agenda, and I'm sorry, I couldn't print because I can't get into the calendar. But we had a discussion on here, and it's a not so much tied to yours, Paul, but we just had a discussion in general just about relationships with some of the owners. So I didn't put it on tonight's agenda, but we should put it on a future agenda because we were talking about kind of reaching out, like doing a proactive reach out. I think, Paul, we were waiting for something that you were working on too, because we didn't want to overlap efforts. But we can talk about that next
Okay.
meeting.
To get the businesses to come in and talk.
Yeah. Yeah, or, I mean, again, I know we have talked about, and I know we were joking about it, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't, as a commission, like, go to these places too. Right? I mean, if we're not making decisions and we just want to go and introduce ourselves, we could do that without an agenda. But if we, want to do something more formal where maybe we went there and talked to them, in their space, I think that we could do that. I don't think it's outside of, OML, as long as it's open for other people to attend. Okay, so Paul, with that, I will turn it over to you for your wonderful updates.
There's a lot of good stuff happening. I mean, Laura, I'll answer that question in just a minute. But I think the big thing for economic development was planning board last night approved the special permit at 196 Mansfield for 100,000 square foot flex space. So that's right next to Auto Part International. It's between Auto Part International and the entryway to TPC. So
Auto Parts International.
It's okay. The McDonald's.
Yep.
Across the street from the
Across the
McDonald's.
street. Next to the
the
nursing
assisted
home, but
living.
I can't remember the name of it now.
It's to the right of it.
Yeah.
Is it where there is a weird fence in the front and they kind of cleared and had a bunch of wood or trucks there?
No, it's where
Yes.
it's got the turn lane.
Yeah.
They have their own turn lane on 140. So as you take a right, come out of the McDonald's, take
Yeah.
a right. There is a turn lane to take a left into Auto Parts International. Big sign at the front entrance, Auto Parts International.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So the planning board approved it. That's going to conservation next week. There's some issue, some negotiation still with water and sewer, but they passed through a major hurdle with that one with planning board. And it was they only had a couple meetings, and I'm reflecting on this as we're getting to the end of this planning board year. And as you know, we have 3, possibly 4 each changing. This board was great. This board was fantastic. They got to decisions in a very effective manner. They really asked poignant questions, right on target. And I think they did a lot of good work. I really am going to hate to see this change. But so anyway, they approved it. So last night, the 2 items that changed were continued. One was property known as Outpost Farms on Dean Street. They're proposing a subdivision of 4 lots with a duplex on each one, and they continued it. They've got a few remaining issues, and they've got a lot of abutters who aren't too happy. We continued it, but we could certainly hear the grumblings of the crowd. So they continued it. Then the billboard from Carroll Advertising, they asked for a continuance because both Mr. Carroll and his attorney were not available. And the engineer was concerned that the adjacent billboard company was prepared to have a fully staffed and with their attorney, and he just didn't want to, he wanted to make sure he had his full team with him. So, so they're continued to April 5th. I mean, they're both aware that they need to get an approval by the board by their second or their last meeting in April, because, and I think that the billboard will. I'm not sure about the subdivision on Dean Street. In fact, I'm pretty certain that's not going to happen. It hasn't opened, so hard to say, but the issue there for both is that if the planning board the planning board's either going to be making a hurried decision at the end, or they'll say you need to withdraw and then resubmit, then go in front of the new board. So, or you just continue until after the new board starts. So anyway,
hey, Paul, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I ask, Carroll Advertising, is that the first one that has the existing billboard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They have the one off of Lopes Drive.
Okay, thank you.
So that's where we have the agreement with right now, or I guess that expired, but so that, we've got a lot happening there. Cumberland Farms is broken ground. They are beginning construction and they are looks like they're making some pretty rapid progress. I think their plan is to open by the fall. Have
Wow.
that facility there. So that's exciting news. Another big news is we have, of course, we're now in town meeting time. In 2 weeks, the planning board's going to hear the first of their public hearings on the 2 rezonings that are both pretty significant. I think for the town, the big one is Reed and Barton. Somebody is actively looking to buy the site or take ownership of the site. And they went ahead and was able to get a petition to propose rezoning from industrial to village commercial, which, is technically it's a down zoning. But they're looking at, we don't have specifics, but they've talked about top of the shop development, some sort of mixed use development with commercial on the first floor and residential above it.
Who's the interested party to purchase that?
It's a company called Devco North America out of Boston.
Do they specialize in like previously
do.
contaminated sites?
Yeah, that's their business. They focus on, they're a brownfield developer.
Okay.
So they actually have a portfolio of dirty sites. They've got a few, in fact, they've got a couple in Rhode Island, one of which I'm very familiar with. I grew up not too far from it. So I think this could be I'm optimistic this could be the perfect match for us, or a great match for us.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I mean, yeah, and I know we've talked about in the past, like when we talked about it at the select board meeting, like I heard it and I said, I thought that we were going to do that, try to rezone commercial. And then Mike reminded me it was a petition. I think both of them are petitions, right? Both of the rezonings.
They're both, yeah. But
yeah.
We didn't want to initiate anything on Reed and Barton. We just didn't know what anyone would want to do. And
right. No, it makes sense. I mean, if the buyers are, I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks, but for that area, industrial, I don't think was appropriate anyway. Like the fact that maybe when it was first put there was fine, but then as people, and it's unfortunate because we've done this in many areas, but then we build houses around it, and then, we're upset about the industrial place that's there. So I think that this is really, I think it's a great opportunity for the neighbors to, have something be there that's not this
right,
awful looking broken down warehouse.
And 100 years ago, being on a river was the prime area for a lot of industry, but that's not the case anymore. I mean, they're more concerned about having access to freeways and highways. And as you can see all around this area, that a lot of the old mills that were vacant for decades, they're now lofts. So, and of course, we don't have that luxury with Reed and Barton. That building, there's nothing worth salvaging there. But, having an opportunity to develop, residential or really a mixed use building, hopefully with that view, could be a great thing. I know the woman who's the president of the company was very enthusiastic about the site. The other development, actually real close to Reed and Barton, is it's proposed to be a residential development. I mean, but they're proposing to rezone a property from residential 60 to village commercial. And this company bought the three large parcels just south of the reservoir, connecting Mansfield to Reservoir Street. And this is the property that's immediately adjacent to what is currently Patrick Chung's property, the former Patriot player. What they've shown us is conceptually is a more of a cluster development, and They actually had a few weeks ago, they had a community event. They did a Zoom event. It was pretty well attended. A lot of people from the neighborhood were there to hear them. You know, I think that what I heard was that they were fine with residential. They're not, some of them aren't fine with village commercial as the zone. But as one of the representatives said, well, if we had a R20 zoning district, we would have applied for it, but we don't have one. So that's going to be an interesting one too. It's a good piece. I mean, it's mostly residential, but they are proposing commercial on the parcel that fronts Mansfield. So that's big. So we have a couple zoning bylaw changes that I want to make sure everyone's aware too. The proposals we made were done before we even knew any of these were coming in. But we're making a couple of changes specifically to focus on economic development. And so one of the things we're doing, it's pretty benign, but we're adding uses like life
Excuse me,
science.
Paul.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I
just
keep
saw
waiting for
Laura's
him to
hand
look up. Sorry, if we could just go back to the citizen petition on Reservoir, those parcels.
Yeah.
What are the plans for commercial development there?
Well, we only saw a concept plan, so that's all it is. So, you know, we don't know. And we do want to keep in mind that right now, it looks like the retail industry is somewhat recovering, but the pendulum hasn't swung back. You know, it was already, new growth in that industry was declining before the pandemic, but you know, they want to try to take advantage of their location right on Mansfield, and then it's village commercial. But you know, we'll see. I mean, they talked about it being potentially a restaurant, but you know, this is so early into that, you know, it could, who knows, it could be a number of things before we see it.
Okay, thank you.
Even, you know, just as an example of that too, I mean, Condyne still can't get tenants for their 2 commercial properties at Blue Star, and they are promoting it, and it's just difficult. We're just not seeing throughout the state a whole lot of new construction and retail, but yeah, they would like to see that. So
Unfortunate, because they had a wonderful potential for construction and retail there.
yeah, and but those are the things that happen, right? I mean, if it's not one thing, sometimes it's another, and so you know, we'll see what they end up doing up there, Blue Star. But
yeah, Paul, can I ask on the that's the Wheaton property, right, that you're talking about on Reservoir?
that's the one they're proposing to rezone. Yeah.
Yeah, is it 2 things, right? If it is village commercial, even though they say that they're not going to put something that's commercial on the side of Reservoir, they could, right? Or is there a condition as part of rezoning that says you can only do it on one side?
You can't do it. You can't.
So there's a risk there.
It's not legal to do it. And
yeah,
you know, when I worked in the city of Austin, they did this thousands of times, and it became so incomprehensible, that zoning map, that don't do it. I would really recommend against it. But the vote is village commercial appropriate there, and they could show you the, you know, plans to do residential, and again, things could change and somebody does commercial, and you know, they would have that ability. So now that the question becomes, is a retail or an office use appropriate there?
Right, and I don't know as a resident that I would take that chance, to be honest. You know, because I just think it's a trust factor, and somebody can change. You know, we've seen things change so quickly. Is it possible for them to split the parcel and then have one stay as the residential and the other that's abutting Mansfield to change it? Like, would that, if this didn't pass at town meeting, would that be an option for somebody to do?
It could be. It could, yes. To answer your question, the challenge is, unfortunately, toward the Mansfield side, it's wet. There's a huge wetland area that they're going to have to cross anyway. but that's gonna be a big impact over there. So we want to make sure going forward that traffic could still be distributed more toward Mansfield and not on Reservoir. That's our hope. That's our goal. I mean, well, if they come in with a project, the board would have the ability to look at where the traffic is coming out. And that's going to be a big limiting factor because Reservoir is a residential street. So we have to see. But again, yeah, the answer is it's possible, but it's not going to be easy. Unfortunately, I had hopes to see a restaurant right up closer to the reservoir. People could take advantage of the view, but in the village commercial area, it's all wet. I walked it with the conservation director, and it was during the winter, but it was all iced over, and he confirmed the wetlands through there, and it's a beautiful site, but it can't be developed where the wetlands are. And again, it's a huge swath of it. I think for now that as far as things going on, I guess just two other things. I mean, no great movement on it, but I would expect this summer we may have an event, a festival on the, potentially on the village green or nearby. There's movement afoot for something like that potentially. So yeah, I think we're we have a lot of good things happening right now. Things are moving.
And where did you say that was on?
Well, we may be there are a couple businesses that are on West Main are talking about trying to relaunch or launch some type of event. But we don't know yet. But if it happens, we'll certainly let you know.
Okay, great.
But the point there is that some businesses are moving forward. With some of the new the people who bought the properties, right at the intersection are, slowly making progress toward opening their various businesses. Still, like the Old Town Library is still a lot of things that have to happen, but the family that bought it is actively doing things that they need to do to address parking, to get a DOT curb cut, and so I'm optimistic they're going to make that happen. And it could be some sort of restaurant cafe.
Right on the corner there?
Yeah, could you see having an EDC meeting there?
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful space inside. We were there, I was there, I don't know, within the last year, and you could see the beautiful old architecture inside of it. I kept saying, can we move the planning department over there, have an annex? But no.
Good try.
But yeah, that's a couple of things too on the zoning changes, the zoning bylaw changes. Again, it's all geared toward promoting economic development. So we are also proposing to eliminate a density cap that's in one of our tables in the zoning bylaw that actually says you can only do 7 units in a building. And we just, especially now with some of these things going on, we just said, well, that cap, you don't set limits like that in zoning. You let other things dictate what can go on a site, but don't arbitrarily say 7 units is all you can do in an apartment complex other than a 40B. So we're proposing to make a simple change on that to allow to say 3 or more units, and then set the size of the minimum lot size. And we're making some changes to village commercial zoning to incentivize the development of it, including reducing the minimum lot size, reducing the frontage requirements, all in an effort to try to do what we can to again, promote more development. And then, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the frontage requirements was specific so that we did have like that walkable area and it was more.
Well, that's for village
commercial.
center core. That was for the village center core zoning.
Okay.
This is for the village commercial. So we started to move, and I should say the zoning bylaw articles we brought through the planning board, and they made actually they took I was pretty conservative coming out, and they were the ones who said, no, let's do it right. And having some of the standards that are just way too large and makes all these properties non-conforming. They were the ones who were very proactive in doing it. The last change, we realized that we have an affordable housing bylaw, and there's a provision in there that says if you create 6 or more units in a building, at least now 10% of those units have to be affordable. And that is a killer for a number of reasons. But affordability, you would never have a 6-unit development and have 5 of them market rate and 1 affordable. The numbers just don't match up. And I think the thing I want to point out to people is that this has been in effect for 20 years. Came out in 2003 when we were only at 3% of the subsidized housing inventory. Now we're at 11. And I looked back and did some research and found that we've only used this provision twice in 20 years. And it's resulted in 6 approved units, and only 2 have ever been built that are affordable. So in 20 years, we have 2 units that to show for it. Now we're over 11%. So we've put a provision in to say that this bylaw is not applicable as long as we're over the 10% subsidized housing threshold that's set by the state. So again, all of that is in an effort to just try to promote different types of development. So that's all I have. Sorry to have taken so long.
That's okay. Do any of these changes, I guess, help towards the MBTA regs that are coming, or are they things that are going to have to be adjusted again later?
Great question. And no, these aren't. These actually indirectly will do that, but they don't meet the MBTA requirements. So I will say with Serpent having their proposal for their direct local technical assistance grant, the DLTA, I spoke with one of their planners and talked about a strategy of how we could use the DLTA funds. And I've certainly heard from select board and planning board not great enthusiasm about all of this. And so what we've talked about was with that Serpent could possibly help us with doing what they call a housing production plan. And as part of that, they're thinking about doing this for many of the communities that are affected by the MBTA. That remember, one of the things we have to do this year is to produce a game plan for how we're going to move forward, and that's not a real big lift. So they could wrap that in with the housing production plan to help us do that. But they're aware that, there are people here who have concerns about moving forward on this. I need to make sure we're, at least until I'm told to back off, I just want to make sure we're lined up and ready if we're still committed to go forward. So, at least we're keeping the MBTA requirement on our radar. But again, some of these changes that we're proposing in the bylaw have the intention of trying to promote more housing. And it could be multifamily. Again, that 7-unit cap would, absolutely be, if by removing that, it helps that happen. And again, it doesn't mean that you're going to see 1,000 units coming in. It just means that, there's more flexibility to see how a project can fit within a site.
Makes sense. So,
Good. I'm not sure I explained it well, but
A lot of moving parts.
there's a lot of moving parts, but our focus really was on just taking that first step of looking at the bylaw and trying to, modify it so that it becomes a better proponent of economic development. It's the first step, but going forward, we have to make some, we need to bring consultants in to really do a much deeper dive into that bylaw and see what can we do to promote life sciences and some other, by using overlay districts, just like what we did with marijuana. There are things, are we willing to, do an overlay district or 2 or 3 and say, if you meet these standards, you could get more development, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to say, can we make the process easier for approval? Do we have to do special permits, or if we do, can it be some sort of expedited review? I don't know. I haven't done research to see, but we would need to bring a consultant in. But, if we give more entitlements and we make the process a simpler one, those are things that will attract development to an area.
hey, Paul, speaking of the overlay, with that property that is on Mansfield Ave, right? If that's rezoned to village commercial, that affects the marijuana overlay district, doesn't it?
Well, you would need to amend the overlay district to add it. Just like when the DOT property was rezoned to industrial, that property does not have the overlay district on it.
So should we plan at least for that property to do that?
For which one?
For the DOT one, because that's already been changed, right?
Yeah, that's already in effect.
So in order to do that, it's going to be the same process. We have to modify the overlay district. We wouldn't have to modify the bylaw. It would still fall
No.
within the parameters of the bylaw, but would have
No,
to
you would do a
it would have to be taken a town meeting though, right?
It would, yeah, but it would be a rezoning. But
Yeah.
we might want to, talk with DOT before we take that step, since they still are the property owner, and I don't know how they'll feel about it. They might say, great, make it more marketable. But I would say we probably need to have some discussions over what we would like to see at that site. Whether it's, marijuana business, or, I see that site and I go, boy, that could be a great site for life sciences, or, certainly what you see happening over across the street at Blue Star could be another, this could be a continuation of that, where it's mostly supply chain businesses. But again, it could certainly fit in great there. I mean, the access is great, and, it's not immediately near the neighborhoods, and no schools or anything like that around there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could, but yeah, we would just need to submit for the rezoning for it.
Can I ask whatever happened to we met with, maybe it was Condyne. They had proposed a land swap or a zoning change on the area across from Blue Star on the highway. And then nothing ever came of it.
Is this the one right at the northeast corner of 123 and Leonard? The property that's owned by the condo association?
No, I'm thinking it's the one where the state owns it, and we were going to swap it out with something for them.
The DOT property?
Is
Say
that what it
the
is?
salt shed or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the DOT property. That was the one that just got rezoned, within the last year, but no, DOT has every intention of putting that up for sale.
okay.
Geez, Mike,
I think, Laura, to your point, we did. I think the board actually signed off on that,
Okay,
on
but
that
wasn't
little
there
piece
some,
that was in there.
yeah, there was,
I'm sorry. The little town property. Oh, I misunderstood
Is that what
you.
you're talking about, Laura?
That got
Well-
approved at town meeting.
okay, well, wasn't there,
I thought the swap was Condyne and it was across, not across 123, but across Leonard. Wait, is that Leonard there?
That's Leonard.
yeah,
I thought,
no,
I
that's
thought
not
there
what
was
you talking
something
about the-
there. No?
Kingsbury, are you talking about Kingsbury or are you talking about so I mean, there's a little piece of property that basically we assigned basically so you can access the DOT property.
Yeah.
And then there's across the street, the Kingsbury property that's been, right now there's debate on 97 versus chapter 140. And I mean, I could give you some update, done some work on that, but I mean, what Laura was, what are you speaking about specifically?
I think, and again, it's all kind of a jumble in my head. When we were talking about the property that's across the street from Leonard Street, where the salt sheds are.
Yeah.
The state wanted to sell it. I think Condyne may have had an interest in buying it, but there was some issue with the very back parcel of that. And I forget what exactly the issue was with it there.
Okay, so you may be talking about are you talking about the parcel then that was donated to the town? That it's acts right now, it's in between the DOT property and Red Mill. That parcel?
I think
don't
that's
remember.
right, Laura, and they
all I
were
remember-
planning on moving it to the water.
They wanted to switch it across the street.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, okay, maybe this is it. There's
Okay.
conservation land on the
Yeah.
salt shed property.
Yeah,
I don't know what's happening. The last we had spoken with them, they hadn't publicly told us what's happening, but there's a parcel that another state agency owns, Game and Fish, that they have to negotiate to move those conservation rights somewhere else. And I think they were hoping to move it toward the Canoe River.
okay. That's,
But-
I'm pretty sure that was it, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but my understanding was they're looking to put that out to bid. They didn't have, I know Condyne would, they've expressed interest, but DOT has to go through bidding processes. So, but I haven't heard anything about them putting it out to bid. I mean, we'd love them, the sooner they do it, the better.
Is it out to bid to sell or to develop?
I think they're to sell,
Okay.
they told us they would be wanting to sell it, but that doesn't mean they couldn't try to lease it either. I mean, nothing the zoning wasn't contingent on any of that.
Gotcha.
Oh, you talking about that little piece of land or the 10 acres?
Well, I was talking about the whole 40,
Oh, the 40 and the big property then.
yeah, but right, there was that small little piece that the town owns right at 123 and what would be Leonard if the road connects through that, right, that we donated, or I can't remember the right term, but at town meeting, right, it basically swapped to DOT, right?
Yeah. Jay Barrows had said, I asked him what's going on with that piece of land and with the state and so forth. He said that Mass Development is aggressively marketing that land. So
Oh, good, okay.
I'm not sure what that means, but he says that they're actively, aggressively marketing it.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that or seen that, but he would certainly know better than I. I mean, the one thing, one of the things though we need to we want to see happen is, you know, Laura, going back to that parcel that abuts Red Mill, that parcel does not have access to any road. They gave us a property that doesn't have any frontage. So we want to make sure that when that DOT property eventually develops, that they essentially develop Leonard Street west, but make sure it connects to the town property. So that way it's usable. I mean, whatever, we don't know what it'd be used as, but right now it can't be used for anything. So.
Hey, Paul, have you been able to, do you think you might be able to talk to John regarding the rodeo property and that property and find out if there's a way to access from 123? If I know there's wetlands between the rodeo property and the 40 acres,
Yeah,
but is there a way that you might be able to talk to John and maybe walk it with them or try to look at some maps and see if there's access? Because there's been some movement of ownership over on the rodeo property.
yeah,
And
I've spoken
they-
to them.
Yeah, and they there's no way in heck that they're going to allow development over on. I mean, they'll come out with pitchforks if they develop that the way that they would like to develop the rodeo property. But if there's a way to find an upland, if there's a way to do an upland connection between the two properties, you might be able to connect a road
Yeah,
to one side.
I mean, my conversation with people, you know, and including with the owners, like, you know, you can apply for what you want, but you're going to need to rezone it to whatever, you know.
Right.
But I just think the simplest, not the simplest, but a compatible way is to just develop it as residential. But,
Yeah.
you know, we've had conversations with a lot of people prior to the change in ownership asking about industrial. I'm like, you're not going to get industrial there. You know, where are the trucks going to go? North Washington Street. I mean, that's a narrow residential street. It just doesn't, I know people realize it abuts 495, but there's no access. Like if you want to build the ramp, be my guest, but that's going to cost you a few $100 million to do it.
No, absolutely. That's why
Yeah.
I say if there's a way to see if there's the wetlands, if there's a way to connect those properties somehow, that might be the way that we develop it. Shut off the North Washington Street exit and then just basically access it through the 123 at the light. And you basically can take a left into a development. That would be if there's a way to do it. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they will have to show us what they're proposing to do.
but I'm curious if you might be able to see if, you know, sometimes people lack vision. They're just looking at one lot when we know that Mass DOT is trying to sell that 40 acres. And then we have access to this. So now we have a need to access that lot. We might be able to say, hey, you know, this is one of the things that we vision for both lots and we could win, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of the wetland maps there. Boy, that's a
tricky area.
A flyover.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate what you're saying. I you know, we'll just see. I mean, I'm trying to keep myself focused on the commercial development, but we're seeing more residential now coming.
Yeah, I mean that would be North Washington. That development would be rodeo.
Yeah.
Would be great if they could develop into residential too.
I certainly have dominated the time, which is never my goal.
That's okay. Did you have anything else, Paul? I think you gave some great updates.
Oh, I think I've given you more than enough.
Well, thank you for the updates and the information. So why don't we move on to the next item? And Sandy, I'm glad that you're here because I can't get into my town email to grab the document to talk about. But we were going to, on the last select board meeting, the agenda item to review the process to evaluate the applicants for liquor license was not included. So the select board hasn't reviewed that. And I think there were some open items. And then I put it on here just for a brief discussion on any questions that there may have been or anything that anybody's thought of since the work that was done at the last meeting. And I don't know, Sandy, if you don't, I can't remember who was on the last meeting, but if you or Laura or whoever was kind of leading the charge, wants to just give a quick overview. Paul, were you on that meeting?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just took the document for the MRS process that we use for the marijuana and sort of changed it and updated it or altered it for alcohol. We couldn't necessarily agree on what the name of the committee or some of those details, but I think the logistics, kind of major pieces we got ironed out and worked out. Did you have a chance to look at that at all, Renee?
I did look at it when you sent it. I don't remember the specific details. Is anybody else hearing that funny noise?
Yeah, I was
Yep.
getting feedback.
Is it from me? Sorry, is it?
It is, yeah.
It's doing that. Okay, hang on. Laura, do you want to fill in any gaps then?
Sure. Do you want me to actually pull it up? I gotta find it. Hang on, wasn't prepped for this. Let me open it.
And thank you guys for going through that. I know it was a lot of work for one meeting.
Give me 1 second. All right, if I can share.
Maybe I might have to change a setting here. Let me look for.
Yeah.
There you go. You should be able to.
All right. Hang on, let me make it bigger so everybody sees it. How's that?
That's good.
Okay, so the things you have to take into account, we didn't know what to call it. We got into a discussion and we were just in the weeds and figured it's really not important. Somebody can figure out what the heck they want to call it. So it needs to be relabeled from where it references marijuana retail establishment or
Mhm.
marijuana establishment. But in terms of the process, we've culled out everything related specifically to marijuana and narrowed it down quite a bit. I think we had a couple of questions with regards to, are there comparable things that the ABCC requires that should be correlated into something here? But as you can see, it is a significantly shorter document than the MRS one was.
Yep.
So,
And I have notes from the initial discussion. Like one of the things that town council would advise is, we want to look at things like, again, I mean, making sure we're comparing apples to apples in the process, but thinking about what their operational position is, sustainability, the benefits to the town, and I don't mean benefits like we spoke of benefits for marijuana, right? But kind of based on location. Location was part of it, and then really like accessibility. Does it fit with what we wanted in town? Like just making sure that we identified the criteria on there to be fair and equitable in the review process. So I have some of those notes from the initial select board meeting where they had discussed that. So I can add some of that in here too. And really this is a proposal to the select board to say, here's a potential option to do the reviews. There are through the state, there are specific guidelines in when a town has to respond. So one of the things that we would have to do is, as a town, is make clear that your application isn't complete until this review process is complete, because there's 30 days that a town has to respond to say yay or nay to the liquor license. So we might have to make, I don't know what we put in here, like, and I know there's the original date, but we might have to just be more specific on the timing of how long it would take for this review process to take place. Not to meet the 30-day requirement, but so that the state sees that, it's not a process as long as we did for the marijuana retailers, right? Like we couldn't, I think it ended up taking us like 3 months to get through. So we'd have to define a timeline pretty specific within the document. And I don't believe that I saw that when I looked at it last time, but I don't know that the commission knew of that either.
No, we knew there were things in here that were going to have to probably be specifically addressed.
Okay.
To accommodate whatever the requirements were regarding liquor licenses, so.
Okay.
Saving, essentially what we've done is we have tried to make it a little generic isn't the right word, but more or less pot specific. So a lot of information regarding, like specific security and vaults and things like that related to pot. While we still left in there, the diversion to minors is still an issue, that sort of thing. We took out references to the community impact fees.
Mhm.
I think we actually did leave in here something with regards to plans for positive community benefits, if any, but we need to, the question is in there as to whether there's any legal implications with suggesting they may want to put something like that in their
Sure. Okay.
application.
Okay.
I think somebody had suggested, it's not uncommon for, a liquor store to, maybe host a little league team, that type, or sponsor a little league team, that type of thing.
Would we want to put that specifically?
No, I think we
Okay.
chose to leave it very broad so that they could interpret it any way they wanted to.
Okay.
So if they wanted to donate to Cupboards of Kindness, for example, or they had a proclivity towards, veterans issues, let them
Mhm.
decide.
Okay. Or if they just wanted to be more participants within the community?
Yeah.
Like in cleanup days or something like that?
Sure.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And then, but the structure from what I saw looked the same, right? It was the EDC with the town manager and the town planner?
We talked about it. We left it that way because we didn't, we did say who should be on it, but I think we changed I forget exactly, I should have left it as a red line. I forget exactly how.
I thought we said it wouldn't be the whole EDC, it'd be some sort of a
subset maybe.
Yeah. I thought,
And
maybe I,
And I
We're
thought we
calling
did
incorrect.
something with the police chief and the fire chief and the town department heads. I think instead of, I think we may have added deemed necessary.
I mean, this one,
Or-
it looks the same, that they would act as an advisory capacity. I don't see
I-
any difference there.
I think before it was something more they will as opposed to they may. I
Okay.
think we just softened it so that it wasn't a requirement that they were part of it. Because
Okay.
it's less important, and we could conceivably, strike it. Police, maybe you would leave in their fire. I don't know.
I mean, I think that they both have, as part of the overall process, they have to sign off specifically later on.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's so much relevant here. Like, I think the police and fire were more, the police specifically, right, was more because of potential traffic issues and all of that, right? And then the security that was required by the CCC, which is,
Right.
I don't believe is the case for the Alcohol Commission. So, okay, so do we want to list it as, because right now it does say the EDC, do we want to list it as, if we had, I would say 3 members, right? Because you want an odd number with the town manager and town planner. 3 or 5 members of the EDC. How would we want to put that?
It's
go
what
with the smaller number 3.
can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Sandy?
Well, if it's 5, don't we have quorum and don't we have to post then?
Well, you'd have to post anyway because we're defining it as a subcommittee.
Okay.
So it would still be subject to any open meeting law.
But I mean, it doesn't, did we always post it as an EDC meeting before too?
No, we posted it as an MRS.
Okay, were we supposed to post it as a EDC meeting as well?
I'd have to look at it.
The
It's,
subcommittees
they-
typically have a non-quorum. Right?
Yes.
no, wait, say that again?
Subcommittees don't usually
Subcommittees-
constitute a quorum.
Well, subcommittees typically don't have a quorum of any one board.
I don't know, but I know we posted, it may have said EDC/MRS. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
You can probably just
But-
ask a quick question at town council.
Well, I think that that's how we got to this point anyway. Like I know it had to be, it was still discussing town issues. It still had to fall, we still had the same parameters of open meeting law.
So
Let me
I
look.
Okay.
I'm gonna look at I'll look at the agendas real quick.
I think the reason that we had everybody last time is because do you dictate then who's on it?
Well, we would have to, so if we do say 3 people, then we have to say, how are those 3 people determined, right? Is it volunteer? Is it, appointed by the chair, whatever it might be?
I feel like that's why we just kept it the whole EDC with a marijuana piece with the MRS. It's getting too complicated to decide which 3 would be on it.
I don't remember ever talking about it not being the entire EDC, I think just because it was new.
Well, I know we definitely did. We originally talked about the MRS process. We entertained briefly the option of just having a subgroup of people.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's fine. I just don't know how you would determine who those 3 people are that would have to go to those extra meetings.
Well, I would
I
imagine
will
that,
happily stand down.
yeah, I was gonna say, I would imagine people would opt to do it.
That's my point, is who wants to do, who would be
Right.
left, right? And not so much that everybody's fighting to do it, but
Well, we can always put in there too, it's 3 members of the Economic Development Commission or 3 members of the public who are appointed by the EDC. I mean, if we think that we wouldn't have people, but my concern with that is that my concern in it's twofold, right? Going outside and reducing it is it going to cause further delay to the process because you have less people?
I guess I'm thinking if you're gonna have it 5, you might as well have the whole EDC. Because you may only have 5 of us in any one given meeting anyway.
Yeah, I thought I heard 3 from Denise.
Right, that's what I'm saying is either I would say either do 3 and make it a subcommittee or have all of us.
So from the agendas with this before, I put them as both. I put Economic Development Commission / marijuana retailer subcommittee. So that's how I posted the agendas before. So it did list both. I mean, I'm open to whatever, right? I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be a hindrance. Like, it's definitely going to be something that's short term, because the process would be, it would be based on when an alcohol license is available, and there is one available right now, which is why there was some urgency to define a process and have it in place so that you can, open up for submissions and have the review process kick off.
I know they're the ones
So-
who's going to be granting
Just
the
to be,
license.
just to be
but
clear, it's a wine and malt license, not a liquor license. Just we're recording the meeting, there's not a liquor license available. It's a beer and wine
Is
license.
it still not a license that is controlled by the ABCC?
Yes, but you can't call it a liquor license.
So then we
That's why
won't call it we won't.
yeah,
call
we
it a
got into the
liquor.
weeds as to what to call it.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just
it's-
I could replace everything to be, to be named.
Yeah, okay, I just make it clear.
It's an alcohol license.
So here's a question. Should we have a member of the select board be on the committee and then they're the liaison to select board and they present it to select board?
I think the purpose, Laura, and the discussions have been to have an independent group looking at it. You know, we still run the risk of select board members being on the EDC, but it was not a crossover. It was have an independent group look at it, present the findings to the board, and the select board decides. Right. And it's not even, if I remember it correctly from town council, it's not even that so before what we said is, okay, we have X amount of licenses, we're going to provide the recommendations, right? I don't even think it's that. I think it's more, we do the due diligence and we provide the information. It's not necessarily like taking from that to say this person doesn't go forward or this person doesn't go forward unless they didn't provide the information to have a review process. Like I said, I'll have to go back specifically because the criteria was a bit different. So I think the overall objective, and probably what we'll have to put in here, would be to, you know, for the group to do the deep dive due diligence, present the findings to the board, and then the board would make a decision, not necessarily for us to provide recommendations. You know, like before we had, how many, 5 or 6 of them, and we moved forward with 4 or 5 as recommendations. I can't remember now. So I think that there's some differences there too. But that's stuff that have to be fleshed out. As long as we have the framework, I think that we can put in the specificity that's required.
Okay. I'm still not sure I'm still not sure I understand why a select board member cannot be on this committee.
It's not that they
Wouldn't
it's
it
not
streamline
that
it?
they can't. But that's the thing. It's not for it to be streamlined. It's for an independent review to happen by a
understand that.
subcommittee.
The select board member could be an independent contributor to the subcommittee and then be the one responsible for presenting it to the select board.
Could it be
So
like,
that we should put that in here. If that's what our desire is for the process, then that's what we should write in there.
could it be like an ad hoc member that like I'm thinking of, although this isn't really a board though necessarily, right? I'm just thinking like the role that the select board member plays on the permanent building committee, where they're there to
The
serve,
liaison.
but not necessarily.
Well,
as
they're
part-
they're a voting member on that. So for the PBC, the select board is a voting member on municipal projects, right? As is the school committee member for any school related project.
Right, but you don't have to make them a voting member, I guess is my point.
No. I mean, like I said, we just need to define it in here. So if that's something that was discussed before, like, let's just get it in this document now.
I don't think we brought it up before. I think Laura's just
Okay.
out, but I to her point, I think, and as I was trying to find a happy medium between the your points that the person could be there as liaison, but the board could still be independent because that person wouldn't necessarily be voting. They would just be serving as a liaison.
Yeah.
I was using it more to make the alternate folks a party of 3 so that we would then only need 2 EDC members.
Oh, I see.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, whatever we want to do, we can present that to the board. I can tell you part of the conversation with the board was the number of meetings and the number of commitments that are already there. So I think that was why it was, an independent review outside of the board. But if that's what we want, let's just write it in. I mean, they can accept or not. So we could put on for the, I probably would move that paragraph, right, to talk more about the composition of the subcommittee. And then let's put it in there that's comprised of 1 member of the select board, 2 members of the Economic Development Commission, and then a director of planning and
So,
economic development and town manager.
So can I go back to, I think my original point, looking at, if you have 2 people or 3 people that have to go to that meeting, right? I think that's almost harder than just getting a quorum of the EDC there. Like if you're talking about trying to get this process moving along and fit with people's schedules, if you just get 4 people from EDC to show up to the meeting, then you can have your meeting. If you have a subcommittee which is made up of X, Y, and Z, and you don't have enough of those people that can come to the meeting, you're going to have an issue, right? You're not going to be able to meet.
That is a good point.
Okay, so we want to keep it as the EDC as it's written now. Comprised of a quorum of the Economic Development Commission, and then the Director of Planning and Economic Development and the Town Manager. And then do we want to add a board member there?
If the only point of having that board member, Laura, was just to get the number down,
Yeah.
then we probably don't
Yeah.
need it.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're staying as is. Just adding in the comprised of a quorum of the Economic Development Commission. Because I know there are some meetings that not everybody was there, but we were really trying in the beginning to have everybody represented. So this would just allow us to not do that. Okay. Any other thoughts or items that were discussed and maybe not decisioned last time?
I don't think anything that we could answer here. So things that are in parentheses. A, D,
Okay.
Laura,
could you highlight those? Can you put them in
sure.
whatever, yellow, green? Just so I know it's something I could stick, because I might just email town council directly and ask about that.
Okay.
Just in the interest of time. And I can't remember the guy's name. I'm going to have to go back to our meeting to figure out who actually spoke on this.
Oh, yeah, begins with a C, I think.
Remember how
I
you
had it-
said you had that other thing jumbled in your head? That's how my,
Yeah. It's on a sticky note sitting on my desk at work because I kept meaning to go back to watch that section of the select board meeting. And I started it and I wrote the guy's name down and
yeah.
that's
And
all
it
I
was supposed to
remember.
be short and it ended up being a long discussion.
It was. And you
I
can
do
tell
remember
I've
that much.
Still haven't gotten back to it. I think that was it. So you can see these were, culled down quite a bit. I think almost in half.
Okay. Did we keep things in there like around previous experience or previous and I mean this would be something to be considered, right? Like is there any additional ranking for those who have previous experience or those who are already operating in a town under some other license? Like I don't know if we would want that within the criteria.
That we purposely took that out, right?
I broke this.
Oh, jeez.
I know what happened.
I don't know. Hang on.
Didn't we agree to take that out, Laura?
Yeah, we did, I think.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm going to shut it down and bring it back up again. Maybe.
I gotta tell you, my
Okay.
Microsoft, wow. My
The
Microsoft products have been pretty wonky lately. I don't know if they pushed out a patch that just isn't working right.
little buttons to shut the document down are gone. Hang on. I'm just closing it off. Okay. I have stopped sharing. Let me see if I can open it. And I will let you know. Okay, it's back. That was weird.
Why? Oh, there you go.
I forget what your question is now. Yeah, we took out prior experience, I'm pretty sure. Mm,
We wouldn't want prior experience in there.
I think the conversation was that that with marijuana, that was a bigger deal since it was a new industry, but with this, there's other transferable skills that you wouldn't be as concerned about whether they had prior experience specific to alcohol.
There are also limits by how many licenses someone can have. So it's just be aware. I believe it. I want to say there are limits how many licenses they have. I don't want to say the number.
So anyways, I will save this with today's date and version 2.
Okay. Laura, if I text you, can you send that to my personal email?
Sure.
Since I can't get it in my town email.
Just tell me which one it is because I'm pretty sure I have all of them. So
All of my email addresses?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, I'm gonna stop sharing. So just tell me.
Yep, I'm gonna text it to you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you guys for doing that. Did we want to talk about, I know, Laura, you had brought up at some point, because we were trying to apply that same process to like reviewing the cultivation. Like, do we want to do a general, like not a marijuana retail framework, but just a marijuana establishment framework? Like now that there's more information and a little more awareness. So that if something comes in front of us again.
It certainly can't hurt.
You mean like a scoring sheet, almost? That you're talking
Yeah.
about?
I had an
Um,
issue with how when it came about with, and I can't remember the one before Queensbridge. What was that name?
Oasis of
Tranquility.
Tranquility.
Oasis of Tranquility. Yeah, I feel like we should have something that we can give to them similar to the MRS application or the RFI application that gives them an idea of what the EDC is going to be looking for. But I also kind of wanted to try and establish what the criteria was or the minimum requirements needed to get to present to EDC. I feel like we spent a lot of wasted time and energy on them that we probably didn't need to. Just for them trying to perfect that package.
Right. So setting the
and-
expectations, right, prior to an EDC presentation or the
Yeah.
attempt to go in front of the board.
Yes. That's what I was trying to get at. Something that, is helpful in guiding them, but isn't telling them how to do a business plan.
Hmm.
They kind of need to have some bare minimum capabilities before they get, in front of us. And I'm not sure we should be the ones telling them what their business plan should entail other than the things that we need specifically related to making the determination as to whether
Mhm.
we want to approve them or not. So, trying to save their time and effort and our time and effort, I think. or better utilize our time and effort, given that we're
Yeah.
volunteers.
No, I think that makes sense. So I know it's like 8:30 already. Do we want to put that on the agenda for next time and we just kind of go through and bullet out some items?
Sure. Yeah, I think
then
a
I-
lot of it can, even looking at the, something is similar, maybe we could modify the, have a scoring similar to like the rubric that Sandy had come up with, and, you need to, somebody needs to review it and make a determination that it majority meets the criteria that are in here before they can get to EDC.
Mhm.
Well, I
to
think,
present.
didn't with that process, didn't we have, and I think Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you did this to make sure there was a certain like bare minimum that they had to at least provide before it went to us. I think they all did, but I thought you looked to see that nothing glaring was missing from this is back when we did the retail marijuana. Didn't you kind of do a glance over on them originally?
A kind of a completeness review. Just not reviewing content, but making
Right.
sure that the information matched up with what was on the original guidelines.
Yeah, so that's what you're talking about too, Laura, then, right? For this process is
Yeah.
is you have, here's a checklist of things you're supposed to submit, and Paul can see clearly they haven't submitted it. They're not gonna, again, like you said, they're not gonna come in and waste their time presenting for just for us to tell them they need to come back with a complete package.
I mean, isn't that what Laura just had on the paper that she had up? That's the RFI, right? That says what they need to submit. Yes, I'm confused. What else are you looking to give them?
But you're talking about for, I think,
non-retail
non-retail, so
marijuana.
it doesn't apply to retail. I was saying it only applies to retail. And then I think there were other things that maybe apply more to, say, a cultivation, right, facility, or just other things we're looking for. Because I think we didn't Paul, didn't you give them that as a guideline to start with? I feel like somebody did.
It wasn't me that provided it to them.
I thought originally to Oasis, maybe Renee gave them like, okay, here's just a guideline. This is what we use for the.
Yeah, in an email. I took it from what we had.
Yeah, so I guess
Yeah.
it's more just firming up that and just saying, here's a guideline, but here's what we're looking for from our cultivation. I mean, it's probably mostly the same,
Mhm.
but it's a little more clear that this is what we're looking for before you even come before us.
We can probably actually, Sandy, use that email because I think I put in there like this is the like expected process, right? Like you present first to the EDC. There's a review on completeness and discussion on the plan, and then like the next step, with the select board if it's recommended, and then presentation with the select board, like a limited presentation. We could probably, because I think I outlined that. I think I outlined that in my initial email, so that might help too, Laura, just to add more content and be. I mean, like I would like to have like just one marijuana document, right? And then maybe we just highlight areas that's specific for cultivation or manufacturing that we want to know, like waste, right? Waste and sustainability, HVAC systems, like things like that aren't applicable to retail, but maybe we can do it all in the same document so that we have the things that are standard for everybody, and then we have call outs for cultivation, manufacturing, like things that we would want to know. Like I think some things that we didn't put in there, or maybe they are in there and I just don't remember, but one of the problems we had in the beginning, and Paul, like, bless your heart for having the patience, but they were like the locations I think had bounced from 3 or 4 different places, and then when they settled on one, we realized that it wasn't in an appropriate zone district, so then the search continued. So I think that should be an item too, like a reference back to the overlay with the bylaw, so that they confirm that what they're proposing or where they're proposing it is even allowed before it comes to us. And then, because I think it first came to us in the wrong spot, and we realized that on our call, right?
I think that is part of that document that says they're
Is it?
appropriately zoned, right? But again, we weren't really sticking to that because we really couldn't, because there were pieces that weren't applicable, or there was things
Right.
missing. So it was hard to hold the applicant accountable for that document, which was very specific to retail in many cases.
Yeah. And that's why I think I'd like to leverage the same one and then just have the specific call outs for the different type of establishments so that we are just operating under one framework. So if that works, I can put it on for us to discuss next week, and then we can have those additional items, and I can find that initial email too, so that we can leverage things that are in there. Because I remember, I think for both of them, I ended up copy and pasting from one email, but I went through the RFI first to kind of write out what it was that we wanted. Does that sound good? And then everybody in the interim can think about like things that popped up during the meeting that we want to make sure that we cover in the process. Like greenhouses. Paul, did we ever determine, is that acceptable in Massachusetts?
For greenhouses,
The greenhouse grow facilities? Wasn't there
Well, they
some
have to-
question on that in the beginning?
well,
I thought
I
it
know
was in the
that-
process of being approved or just recently approved or something, right?
I think it's recent.
Yeah.
but they all have to be indoors. Right, so. I don't know if our bylaw specifies greenhouses.
I don't remember greenhouses being in there, but that's not to say it's not. I do often think about the gentleman who presented to us early on with the bed and breakfast idea. Actually, every time I drive down that street from the property he was looking at.
I think that would have been fun.
I know, Denise, I remember your enthusiasm.
Learn how to make brownies.
I know we'll have to update Cody on that at some point. The farm to table bed and breakfast
The wake and bake.
marijuana. Yeah, exactly. We were giving him names, weren't we, that night? It
Yeah,
a
he
good
was going to
discussion.
do yurts, wasn't he?
I don't
gonna do-
remember.
It was going to be like a main house, and then everybody would sleep in yurts, I think.
I don't remember them. I remember that. I don't remember them. That he called them yurts, but
I may be making that up.
no, but they were like small spaces that I thought he said too, that they would be able to like take down in the wintertime or something.
Sounds like
Is that
Laura
what
has a vision.
Isn't that what a yurt is?
I don't know. I don't know.
Kind of. It's like a round tent.
Yeah.
So you could get your smoke on.
No, it
all
wasn't
of the-
about smoking. It was about baking and cooking.
Yeah, all of like everything would be infused. So like the products that they made available, there would be hemp in the lotions and the shampoos and things like that. And, kind of the using the whole plant in a holistic environment.
Okay, on that note.
Yeah, they were gonna have a field of it, can't even imagine what the security on that would look like, but yeah, just an acre of plants growing out in the middle of Norton.
Sounds like a commune.
Free range, very. It was a nice idea.
It was a nice idea. I thought though, like to do something like that in Massachusetts with our climate was kind of
Yeah.
ambitious, but he said it was happening out west, right?
Maybe,
I
yeah,
thought there was something in Colorado.
could be. California, it might work. Out in
Yeah.
the desert areas.
Anyway, I just mentioned that I think about him sometimes and the concept. Okay. Anything else on that topic? Otherwise, I will put the section for the marijuana discussion back on for next week's agenda. And then anything else that while we're talking just quickly, anything else that we want to add to the agenda that may not be on there?
Looks like there's a bunch of stuff already on there.
Yeah, I have a placeholder for an update from Mike on the town properties. I'll have to check with him to see if he's ready to present that and has updates. Or if, or is that a Jackie update too?
You just have a Jackie update?
Yeah, is that, Jackie is the new
Oh,
Catherine.
yeah, got it.
I was
I
gonna
feel
say,
like-
I hope to wow you guys with all the meeting minutes I'm gonna get to for the next one. So I'm so sorry.
Did you look at the, if you look at that item, the MRS ones are still on there. And I know
Yeah.
Lucia at one point said that we only have to keep meeting minutes for a year. And I'm like, does that mean that we don't have to write them after a year?
I was gonna say, if we
Yeah.
wait long enough, right?
I know. I mean, the recordings are still there,
Right.
which is good. And I have them all structured. Like when I pulled up the, when I was pulling up the agenda to see how I listed it, all the minutes were there and they're mainly populated. But
Yeah.
I know it's, let's not talk about that.
I'll get to it. Sorry.
Ditto. We should consider like on a go forward to kind of do a swap around for people just to do, just to,
Well, once I-
and it
once
doesn't
I
have to be
start-
anything huge, like just some bullets and stuff, right?
Yeah. Once I start focusing on it, I can crank them out relatively quick.
Mhm.
It's just getting myself to focus on it.
Yeah. And time, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. That's
It's
the
tough.
issue, right?
Yeah. If only we had more of it. Okay, well, if there's nothing else to come before the commission, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Is that Sandy? I wasn't looking at the screen.
It
Was
was.
that
Yep.
you, Sandy? Okay. Okay, give me 1 second here just so I can go around. Laura,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Excellent, and I also vote yes, and we are adjourned as of 8:47 p.m. Thank you all for your time.
Everyone, good
this
night,
evening,
y'all.
And for the work that you did last meeting as well.
Good night,
Peter.
Denise and Renee and the gang. Good night, Laura and Cody and Alyssa.